Hello again. This is our last video for the notebook on section 3.2. We're going to start with an application problem. Exercise 3. It says a coin thrown upward at time 0 from a window of an office of the Empire State Building has a height in feet above the ground. T seconds later is given by this formula. So they have it. The first one is in standard form, if you remember from the last video, and this one can be written also in factored form. There's a 16 common, and then you can see it will factor if you go through that work. The question is, from what height was the coin thrown, and at what time did the coin reach the ground? If you want to try this first, since it's exercise, please pause, and then we will get back to it in a second. Okay, let's do part A first. From what height was the coin thrown? So if you remember, T versus H of T. What does T represent? H of T represents the height, and this represents the number of seconds it was in the air. So what we want to do here is we want to know the height at the beginning. From what height was it thrown, which was the beginning. So we want to find out when T equals 0, what is H? So we want H of 0. So the standard form is the easiest there, so I'm just going to plug that in. And you see the first two terms are 0, so it's 960. And they did say, I didn't write that down, that this was given in feet. So we should add that there in feet. So this would be feet. That would be the answer for part A. Part B. Let's do part B. At what time does the coin reach the ground? So now we want to know what time the coin reaches the ground. And the coin reaches the ground when the H, the height, is 0. That's the key. So I could plug in 0 here, but the second equation, the factored form, is the one that I'm going to use. I'm going to take that second equation and I'm going to set it equal to 0, because now we want to know what time is the height 0. You can divide both sides by negative 16, so the negative 16 does not have anything to do with solution. If you remember from the last video, you know the two solutions. If it's in factor form, you set each factor equal to 0, and you add 10 to both sides on the first one. That would be 10 seconds, since T is in seconds. And the second one, by the way, doesn't even make sense. That says T equals negative 6 if you subtract 6 from both sides, and negative time does not make sense, so we just cross it out, and the answer is in 10 seconds. The ball hits the ground in 10 seconds. Exercise 4. In exercise 4, we have a function. So this is, if you remember, standard form. Let's write those down. The first one is in standard form. The second one is in factored form. And finally, the third one that we're going to look at, the third form is exercise 4. That's vertex form. You can see that on the last video. So it says for the functions f of x that we have here shown, state whether the h and k are positive, negative, or 0. And if you remember, h comma k, what is that? H comma k is the vertex. So this vertex, what do you think? Positive, negative, or 0? So pause, try that, and come back when you're ready. Okay, did you get the answers? The answer to the first one, the h is the x-coordinate of the vertex, and the k is the y-coordinate of the vertex. So the h is 0, and the y, that's below the x-axis, so the k is negative. The second one. If you need to pause first, maybe you need to rethink that, Maybe if you're ready to do part B, please pause it and come back. What are the answers to B? Okay, so the H is positive and the K is 0. The H is the X coordinate. Let me just write H comma K there, maybe that will help. The X is positive and the Y is 0. Let's do the same thing for factored form. So go ahead, try A and B. See if you can figure out if the A and the R and the S are positive, negative, and 0. Assume that the R is less or equal to S. Okay, the R is on the left. So that would be, the R would be over here. Those are the factored form. If you remember, the R and the S, R and S are the x-intercepts. So if the R is less than or equal to the S, the R would be to the left. So did you get the answer? Yep, the R is negative and the S is positive. What is the A? Remember the A, if you check out the last videos, the A, if it's upward, the A is positive. What about part B? Well, it crosses it right at 0, doesn't it? The R and the S are both 0. They both equal each other. Luckily, they had less than or equal to there. And the A, this is a downward parabola, so the A is negative. Last one to try for this section, exercise 6. So now with all that information, see if we could write a formula for a quadratic function with vertex 3, 9 and passing through the origin. So go ahead and try that one. I'll give you a hint. Factored form is not good. I would use vertex form. So let me go ahead and at least write that down. What's vertex form? Where H and K is the vertex. The reason I'm using the vertex form is because we have the vertex. The H is 3 and the K is 9. So go ahead and pause this, see if you can do exercise 6, and come back for the solution. Okay, so what did you do? I want an equation, so I'm going to leave the y and the x alone, or we can call this f of x, since that's what they usually do, call it a function. We don't know what the a is, they didn't give us that, but we do know that the h is the 3. This tells us the h comma k, so this tells us the h is 3 and the k is 9. How you find the a is you know it's passing through the origin. If you remember, the origin is the point 0, 0. So if I plug in the y is 0 and I plug in the x is 0, you can find the value for a. So how am I going to do that? I'm just going to solve this equation because we know that this would be a 9, because this would be an a negative 3 squared, which negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. So I'm just going to write that as a 9a. And then what I'm going to do, maybe we can do it over here, is I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. Get negative 9 is equal to 9a. And divide both sides by 9. So you can see a is negative 1. So the conclusion, what's our function? Now we know all three. We know the a, and we know the h, and we know the k. That should be the answer. You don't need to put the negative 1 there, but it's fine if you do. Hope that helps.